Yo, what it do, St. Louis? It is that time,
What's
y'all.
up?
The St. Louis Hustle podcast is live and in living color, man. And we've got a wonder-filled show for you today, man. So if you're checking us out on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, any of the online platforms, and y'all know that y'all can comment in the chat where you're from. Also, drop the name of your business and or your brand. Just don't drop any links.
Yep.
We'd love to give you some shout
Yep.
outs on the show.
Please.
We're talking about adult children, man. Is there a such thing as putting your grown children out too early? Right. So let us know in the
No.
comments your thoughts. We're gonna get all the way up in this topic. And at this point, we're gonna cut away to our intro. So y'all keep it locked right here. Well, actually not. We're not cutting away to our intro.
We're not doing that.
We're on a new
not
streaming
really.
platform, and
Right.
we can't get our intro working this morning. But
No.
nevertheless, we're going to pretend that we are watching the
Pretend.
intro. Growing up in St. Louis has never been easy.
Right. Is that
What's,
what we're doing?
what's the rest of the
Never.
script?
Never been easy. So can I just say it since you put it out there?
Yes.
Since you put we on this new platform and it makes me have to use a different camera on my phone. I'm not in love. I'm not in love. Okay, because I'm used to being this way. Now I gotta be this way. And my camera's over here. And I'm used to my camera being up there. So now I'm like, I don't really know where to look. So now I'm like here, 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 here. And so now I'm looking weird in the camera, like, so yeah. You're messing with the sexy. You're messing with the sexy. I'm off today. So they be like, what's wrong with Michelle? Hey, we did okay. Y'all probably be like that every week, but now it's really like, what's wrong with it for real? Is a lash? Something wrong with her lashes? Because you know, a lash catastrophe will cause my eyes to do things. But no, now I'm like trying to get with the camera that's way down there. I'm trying to make sure I'm with the people. So
All right. So,
blame it on
yeah,
that guy.
she's
Right
got a
there.
lot going on, but
I
let's
do.
officially start the show. So, y'all are seeing the behind the scenes of the actual recording of the podcast. So, now we got to
Yeah.
officially start the show.
Okay. We can
All
start.
right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the St. Louis Hustle Podcast. I am Cortez Hustle. That is my girl, Michelle. Hey,
Hey.
and we are super excited to bring to you this episode of the St. Louis Hustle Podcast, where we're talking about whether or not it is a good idea to put
Yes.
your grown $$ children out too early. Is there a such thing? We want
Yeah.
to compare and contrast, what and how we traditionally do it in the Black community versus um, what some of the other cultures are doing. And then
Yeah.
there's also a new thought process, a new frame of mind that I would like to introduce in terms of when and how we uh, take care of our children. And, because back in the day, man, I don't know if you know, Michelle, but I'm from a huge family and
Mhm.
we lived in one of those 3-story properties over on Enright, right over there in Central West End. And
Okay.
it was at one point probably 6 families
Oh.
in that house at one
Oh.
time, right? I
Oh.
remember on the third floor, my mom and her kids had one side of the third floor. My
Okay.
aunt and her children had the other side of the third floor. Then on the
Okay.
second floor, my my uncle and his family had a room on that floor. My grandmother's room was on that floor, and
Wow.
then I had another aunt who had children who had a room on that floor. And I mean,
That's a
that
whole
was
lot
just
going on.
it was a lot going on, man. And
Wow.
there was 3, sometimes 4 generations in that place at the same time. And I don't necessarily know if that was a good thing or a bad
Mhm.
thing. I guess that's what we want to determine and discuss today. But don't hesitate to Let us know in the comments, what are your thoughts? Is it a such thing as putting your adult children out too early? What say ye, Shell?
Well, you know what? I want to make my comments just real quick. We got to do the housekeeping business real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Get the COVID numbers and everything out the way, just super fast. The COVID numbers for St. Louis, we spiked the other day. I think Sunday we spiked. Was it Sunday? Yes, Sunday we spiked and had like over 400 cases in one day, which
Mm-hmm.
was high. They were predicting that we would hit a spike, and we did. So we had over 400 cases in one day in Missouri, and but then we dropped yesterday. We went down to like 100 cases, so we dipped back down, so that was good. So we're kind of leveling back off, which is good. So
Mm-hmm.
so we're at about 18,000 cases for Missouri. Illinois is at about, I think, 100 and 167,000, maybe 100 close to 170,000 cases. So for COVID, I love to ride the president. I ain't gonna stay on him too long because he's awesome. He's the reason for Juneteenth. Let him tell it. So I think he's really black. Your president's black. We got our no, he ain't. Let him tell it though. He's the reason for the season. Okay, so
I got
back to
Juneteenth popping. Me,
right.
45, the orange guy with the yellow hair.
Okay.
I did
Right.
that.
I think that's why he got confused. It's because he orange. He thought he was close to black. He's like, I'm orange skin. Ain't that close to being light skin? He thought he got confused. Okay. So I just couldn't believe it. I was like, you did what? You did stop. You bull. That's a bunch of bull. Okay. So, I just don't. I'm always amazed at what comes out of his mouth. I think he just open up and stuff fall out, and I think he'd be like, "Well, too late. Might as well let it stay out there." So,
Yeah, then he's got to defend it. It's like,
right,
it's out in the universe.
right,
I've got to make it right.
right,
I've got to
right,
stand on this square.
right.
Wrong or right, I said what I said,
Yeah,
and
he
that's
bowed it.
that's what he tried to stand on. Like,
Yeah,
dang it, I
right,
said what I said.
right. He G about it. He's G about it. That's for sure. He definitely make it rain when it be out there. It's like F it. It's out there. Make it be what it be. So I was super excited about this topic today because I am one that embraces putting kids out the house. There it is. I
Ooh,
said it.
you
My
gotta
kids
get
can
your own.
testify to it. If you grown, my phrase was actually, I'm gonna edit the title. If you that grown, you need your own. That's what I told mine. Hey, hey, hey. You that grown? Snap it.
Mhm.
You need your own. Let's go ahead, hop to it. So, um, yeah, I am a proponent for that. I think when kids get a certain age, that you should start
Mhm.
grooming them to be independent. So I don't think it's
Yeah.
necessarily about putting kids out. I think it's about preparing them for life and preparing them
Mhm.
to be independent,
Okay.
preparing them to be mature and start their own families one day. I think that's the mindset. But as I looked into this subject, I saw that there are so many differences between cultures. As
Mhm.
I've visited other countries, they do it so different than we do here in the States.
Yeah.
Here in the States, it's kind of our thing. This is what we do as Americans. We prepare our children for independent living at a very young age. It is what
Mhm.
we groom them for. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
We start that conversation as early as kindergarten. We start preparing them for occupations. Other countries don't do that at
Mhm.
all. Not that they don't prepare their children, but don't, they prepare their children, but they embody family differently.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to dive into is some of those differences.
Yeah. And I think it's not that they are not pushing them out of the nest. I
Hmm.
think they have determined that you're still a child until you're about 30 years old. In
Yeah.
America, you a child, you a grown up at 16, 17. I mean, think about the things that we do if I'm 16 years old and I commit a certain crime. What do they say? I get tried as an adult,
Yep.
right? At 16.
Yep.
If I'm 18 years old, I can go to war and put a gun in my hand and
Yes.
literally kill people
Yeah.
in the name of my country
Yeah.
because I'm an adult, right? If I'm
Right.
18 years old in this country, I can vote and take full participation in the political process. So I think it is still a when you grown, we're going to
Hmm.
put you out and we're going to prepare you for independence. I just
Yeah.
think their definition of the age that says you're grown is different. I think a lot of them anticipate their children being with them until around 30,
Hmm.
and that's where you're fully ready and capable to get married, go start your own family, and that kind of thing. And even then, a lot of those cultures um, will you'd have your own, but you would still be close by the you know the immediate family. So I asked the question, what how old is too old to be living at home with your folks? And Rhonda Bagby says 30 is too old. If you're 30, and I think this goes to my point, a lot of times we're thinking, uh, 30 ain't baby no more. And
Right.
if you really think about it though, Michelle, if we're gonna be projected to live until we are 100 years old, 18 is really not grown by comparison because you've only barely lived a fifth of your life.
Yeah.
So a
That's
lot of things we
true.
need to consider. Angela says 25 to 30 is too old to be living at home. All right, let's see. Angela also says, yes, that's what I'm doing now with my two daughters, teaching them and getting them ready. Here's one that's interesting. Rhonda says, I lived with my parents till 30, paid rent and moved and bought my first house. My dad gave me half of the money. They were teaching me responsibility. Keep in
Yeah.
mind, dad made good money, worked for a big oil company, is her experience. So continue to weigh in, ladies and gentlemen. What age do you think is too old to be living at home? Did you want to interject on any of those comments?
You know what? I was just gonna say, I think to go along with that, I think the age definitely makes a difference. Because I think, yeah, 30 plus living at home is just not a good look.
Hmm.
However, I think also behavior plays into it as well.
Yeah.
I think that if you're younger than that, right? If you are, um, hmm, I'll say if you're, mm, my kids gonna be like, "How dare you?" If you are, let's say, 21 to 25, and you
Hmm.
are exhibiting behaviors that exhibit that are grown in nature,
Hmm.
then if you that grown, you need your own. So and that was a little bit of the case with me and mine, where
Yeah.
some of the behaviors, I won't say all the behaviors,
Right.
but and I won't say all of mine because they could be like, "Why you put me out?" Um, I'll just say that if you see behaviors,
You got two, Michelle. It's easy to figure out which one you're talking about.
I
It's,
know, right? They're gonna be like, uh, but if you see behaviors, they don't want to clean up, or
Mhm.
late hours, coming in all times of the night, or they don't
Yeah.
want to contribute to the household bills. Um, you see a collection of these things where there's a struggle for dominance in a household. You only see,
Hmm.
there's two people who are obviously of age, and you're both doing the same activities, and only one person is contributing financially.
Hmm.
But you know
Yeah.
you're doing all the cooking, you're doing all the cleaning, and you're doing all the financial responsibility
Right.
in the household, but everybody doing the same thing. That's not how that works. you
Yeah,
know
it ain't gonna work.
that
Well,
is
you
just not how
said
that works.
something interesting. You said 30 at home is not a good look, right? But
Hmm.
not a good look to who? See, I think some of the things that we have to redefine for our own culture
Hmm.
has to be what we say it is. I think one of the things that America does paints a broad stroke that says this is the expectation for all Americans. And I don't think all things work for all people, but because we're such a social people, we
Mm-hmm.
go with the thing that is socially acceptable. And we're going to unpack that on the other side of this break. And then we're also going to look at the economic impact of doing things just a little bit differently. So, ladies and gentlemen, y'all keep it locked right here.
What if a product existed that allowed you to lose weight while you got the best sleep of your life? An all-natural supplement comprised of herbs, extracts, prebiotics, probiotics, and enzymes that work naturally with your body to reduce stress, invoke a relaxed state of mind and body, while simultaneously accelerating digestion and metabolism, resulting in a great night's sleep as you burn calories. The result is you sleep better and you wake up lighter than you went to bed. A world leader in nutritional products, Be Epic, introduces Accelerate, a special 2-capsule combination you take just before bedtime. One prepares your mind and body for a deeper night's sleep, while the other gently works with your body's chemistry to accelerate digestion, flush toxins, increase metabolism, and result in a lighter, leaner you every morning. Discover for yourself the life-changing benefits of this amazing supplement. Order your pack of Accelerate capsules today, backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. Manage your body and mind naturally with Accelerate. Visit the website shown below or contact the person who sent you this video.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the St. Louis Hustle Podcast. We've got a hot topic for you today. We're talking about adult children and what's socially acceptable. Is it right to put your children out at a certain age? Is there an age that you should be putting your children out? Should we be concerned with what it looks like in terms of people on the outside looking in? If I'm 25, 30, 35 years old, still living at home with mom, because a lot of times we can see that and we naturally assume that it is because someone is not financially stable, and
Mm-hmm.
that is not always the case. If
True.
for instance, if I had if my mom was ill, right, just not the
Yeah.
best health wise, and I stayed home to help out, it would not look like it would be acceptable in those terms if I cohabited with my mom at 30 because she had some health challenges, right? But
Right.
if I cohabited with mom at 30 because we have an economic plan so that we can build wealth, then that is shunned on by society, because it says that society says we should, at all costs, at 30 years old, be in your own place. So we're going to continue to unpack this. We're going to talk about the economic impact a little bit later on in the show, but I just want to throw that out there and have you guys thinking about there is an economic impact that we could be looking at. And if you're checking us out on any of the social media platforms, make sure you like, subscribe, and share the show. That's your cost of admission for coming to hang out with Shell and I today. So you want to jump in and say something, I could tell.
Mm. We gonna unpack it later because you see it so. However, because I hear that often
Mhm.
from men 30 foot well, not in it. Well, yeah, because I still often uh am approached by men in their 30s.
Mhm.
Ooh. Um, um, but yeah, I still hear that. Yeah, well, I love this one. My mama lived with me. Okay.
but it's her
Okay.
name on the mortgage.
Okay, right. Okay, sugar. Your mama live with you. Um, or that what you just said. My mom lives with me, or I live with my mom, but we're both saving
Hmm.
and you're 40. How old? Well, it just
Yeah.
works better, And
Right.
you have the basement. Okay, sugar. Let's go with that. Yo, you live in the basement. Okay. And what time do you have to be home? Okay.
uh,
Shh, don't
right.
make no noise. Okay, be quiet. Your mama's sleeping. Don't wake her up. Okay. I gotta be quiet. Give me the pillow. Okay. Sorry. Sorry, Lord.
Yeah.
Okay. But so I have mixed reviews of that
Yeah.
because what we're gonna pack it later. You said we're gonna pack it later because I do have an opinion on that.
Okay.
I get economics, but I'm gonna hold it. I'm gonna
All
hold
right.
it.
All right. So Angela says it also it depends on the parent. Some parents say you don't have to leave until you are ready. Um,
Codependency. Whoa,
Vanessa,
codependency. Whoa, give
Vanessa
me 12
says
little. Whoa,
my
yes.
aunt put me out at 16 because I was quote acting grown after my mom passed away.
Oh,
I know we
sugar.
see that.
That happens.
That is the acting grown thing. Um, could that could that be could the acting grown thing be a result of how we
Grieving.
prepared the child to begin with? Because all along, psychologically, we're thinking you've got to be ready to get out of here by 18.
Ooh, we. You know what? I will say mixed bag, right? Because
Hmm.
it depends on what the child has seen, right? And for the young lady that just made the comment, right? No disrespect, just to really quickly address the comment she just made, that could have
Hmm.
been any number of things, right?
Right.
Really, I'm still acting out. My mama been gone 5 years this year. I'm still acting out. So that could be a whole nother thing, right? Especially at the age of 16 and sugar, I'm over 40. And
Hmm.
and I'm, grief takes on many different forms. Depression takes on many different forms, especially behind losing someone significant in your life. So at the age of
Hmm.
16, that probably was grief. So that's a whole nother thing.
Right. Yeah.
But when it comes to kids, I have struggled with at times. I have raised my girls. My girls left home at 21 and 22.
Hmm.
And I encouraged it, right?
Hmm.
Because I was excuse me, I was a single parent and I raised them by myself, two different dads, and one there, one not so there. And they were strong. I raised my girls to be strong, and I
Hmm.
raised them to be grown. I ain't gonna lie. I had my oldest was washing clothes and sorting and
Hmm.
washing clothes at 5. So from
Right.
the age of 5, I raised her to be an adult.
Hmm.
She
Hmm.
was doing and learning adult things,
Right.
um, how to balance bills and how to do this. And this is what you do when this happens from 5 years old on up. So that when she did get 18 and life happened, she wouldn't be taken by surprise. She
Right.
wouldn't be, oh my God, what do I do? She wouldn't be panic stricken and she wouldn't be someone that was out there in the world that needed to depend on a man or needed to depend on someone else. She knew how to, number one, call on the name of the Lord, and then she
Hmm.
had those survival tools. And hindsight, I will admit that I do, and I've shared this with both my girls. I look
Hmm.
back, and sometimes I do have, I won't say regret, but sometimes I do look back and have that thought: Did I push them too fast, too soon?
Yeah. Yeah.
I do have those thoughts, that should I have savored more of their childhood,
Hmm.
instead of always showing them how to be little women, and
Right.
again, I was a sheltering parent. My kids,
Hmm.
my kids don't. They'll tell you today, we don't know how to ride a bike, mama, because that is not that funny. Sir, bring it in, bring it. That okay. This is
who
where.
Who at 22, 23 years
You know
old
what,
don't know how to
sir?
ride a bike, Michelle?
I don't think this is what we're
Be-
talking about today. This is not the
because
topic of the show.
because mom wouldn't let them ride a bike.
But we lived in a subdivision where they didn't have no sidewalks, and I was afraid that cars was not going to be mindful of my kids riding alongside of the shoulder. And I was
Yeah.
still fairly new to Missouri, and I'm like, who don't have sidewalks? What is going on with Missouri with no sidewalks? Who do I
Yeah.
need to write to say put some sidewalks down? What is?
Yeah.
I didn't understand that concept at all. I was like, that's the first thing I noticed when I got here from California. I said, Missouri, where are your sidewalks? Y'all got all of this other
Yeah.
stuff, skating
You
rinks
ain't
and
got no
stuff,
sidewalks.
no sidewalks. What is the deal? I was a skater. They can't
Yeah,
skate either. That's a whole other thing. But that goes into the side. I skated on the sidewalks. Down on the
that's right.
sidewalks. That's why they don't skate. Anywho, they
But
didn't
yeah,
skate for that reason. They didn't ride bikes for that reason. And so anyway, I look back on those days and they
yeah,
could have learned
and I
from them.
think and that goes back to the social conditioning
Yeah.
that puts pressure on a mom, especially a
Hmm.
single mom raising daughters,
Yeah.
that I've got to get you ready by 18. See,
Yep.
society has told us, if you had been taught and it has been encouraged in society to say, hey, I got until 30 to get you ready, then you're enjoying more of your childhood. But when I'm under pressure to say, I got to get you ready by 18 because you're going to be out in this world on your own. No, mom's still
Yeah.
going to be right here with you at 18. I'm still going to be right here with you at 21. I'm still going to be right here with you at 24. So I don't got to rush to cram
Yeah.
40 years of adulting into 13 years from 5 to 18 to get you ready. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that's a huge problem. And you guys weigh in. If you're checking us out
Yeah.
on any of the social platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, let us know if I'm off base. But I think we are coached by society
We
to
are.
say that we have to get these children ready by 18. And at the same time, the same society will tell us that every child matures at a different rate and all of these different things. But you make it like, hey, if you didn't get your child ready to be an adult by 18,
Yeah.
you failed as a parent.
Yeah. That's kind of the stigma. So let me ask this, Cortez, a little bit of a turn, because someone asked me this question. I had a discussion with an acquaintance, and the subject came up. If you have teenage children in the house or young adults, and you ask them to contribute to the household,
Mhm.
and I had this discussion with an acquaintance, and they made the statement, "You charge your children to live with you." They were so appalled. I was like, "Negro, the bills got to be paid. What you talking about? They go to work. The Bible say you don't work, you don't eat. So unless they finna be up in here and they ain't eating, they be paying.
They
But he
said
was
they asked if you charge your children to live at your house.
right to live in my. You charge your. And he was so appalled. Here's the part. I wouldn't even mind if he had asked the question. Oh, you have them contribute. You charge your children to live with you. You ain't got to say it like that, bruh. You ain't have to say it like that. But is it considered charging your children if you have teenage children who live in your household and they are asked to contribute to the household?
Mhm.
Again, I would say between the ages of 16 to 18 plus, or even 18 plus. Let's say 18 plus, right? And they work part time or full time, and
Mhm.
they're asked to contribute to the household. Do you consider that charging? And then B, um, is it fair? Right? What is your opinion on that?
Yes, you're trying to get us into the economic side of things. We're going to
Oh,
tackle
we
that
is
on
that
the other
early?
side of this
I'm
break.
early.
But yes, I don't think it is charging. I think you talk about preparing the child
Thank you.
for the
There it
real
is.
world.
There it is.
Let's just be clear that the real world that we live in
Thank you.
is a capitalistic society where money should
There
be,
it is.
and not to say this directly at you, but you said you start training your child up from 5. Yeah, you start training them to understand bills and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That should have been more of the training than some of the other stuff that we traditionally do as parents. You want your child to be ready to go by 18, teach them about money and fiscal
Agreed.
responsibility
Yep.
above, I think that goes right under your faith
Yep.
and right before
Agreed.
traditional school education, in my opinion. I'm going
I
to teach
agree.
you where your help comes from. It comes from the
Yep.
Lord. And I'm
Yep.
going to teach you, because we are in a monetary system where capitalism rules the
Yep.
nation. I'm going to teach you how to deal in capitalism. And then we'll make sure that you can do the 3 R's, right? Read, write, and arithmetic,
Right.
which of course doesn't start with an R, but that
I'm
just
gonna let you
tells
have
you
it.
how off base our school system is, that
Right.
we're going to talk about the 3 R's. And
Mm-hmm.
and your kid gets slapped upside the head when you say, I thought arithmetic starts with an A. Uh,
Right. 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 Just go with it. Just go with it. Go with it. Go with it.
yeah,
Follow.
go with it. We said 3 R's, doggone it.
Right.
Okay.
Don't argue
But
with your
then,
mama.
but if I spelled arithmetic on my paper on the spelling test, I'm
Yeah.
gonna get a big red X on my paper. So when we come back on the other side of this break, y'all, we're gonna dive into that. I'm gonna lay out a game plan that's starkly different from what it is that we traditionally do and how we traditionally look at our family structure. And you guys tell me if I'm off base, and then we'll talk a little bit more about that. Don't be afraid to comment. Just put in the comment, don't show my comment live if you don't want me to, show some love for you and your comment, and then I won't post it. But on the other side of this break, we're going to talk about the economic impact that could change our family dynamics and the ability for us to create generational wealth if we looked at this thing just a little bit differently. So y'all keep it locked right
Yeah.
here.
Feeling sluggish, unfocused, grumpy, and exhausted? A world leader in nutritional products, Be Epic introduces a cutting-edge performance product, Elevate, featuring the world's most pure herbal, whole food, and medicinal mushroom extracts. This proprietary formula gives your mind and body a boost of energy, endurance, enhanced feeling of well-being, and natural healing power. The days of sugar and caffeine are over. The world is moving back to nature's natural remedies, and the research scientists behind the formulation of Be Epic's Elevate have combined synthesized modern extract technology with ancient medicinal secrets, giving your mind and body the ability to perform at levels higher than ever. Energy, vitality, and overall health, helping prevent weight gain, sleep deprivation, inflammation, and chronic illness. Discover for yourself the life-changing benefits of this powerful elixir of energy, vitality, and overall health. Order your pack of Elevate capsules today, backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. Boost your body and mind naturally with Elevate. Visit the website shown below or contact the person who sent you this video.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cortez, to the St. Louis Hustle podcast.
Ooh.
Got too much going on, Michelle. St. Louis Hustle podcast. I'm your host, Cortez Hustle. That is my co-host, Michelle.
Hey.
And we are talking on a very interesting topic today. If you're grown, you need your own. But is that the case? Is that true? Now, we've established that a lot of the reasons that we force the children out of the nest is because of the look that creates for us as the parent. If I'm the parent of 5 sons, which I am, and one of those jokers is living at home at 28, I'm concerned that people will look at me a certain way as the parent, that I didn't prepare that kid to be out on his own by 28, and I'm going to be judged by this society socially, right?
Right.
that's just not the case. And we talked, what is the economic impact? And I know it's tough to even imagine this now, but I want you guys to think from this perspective. From day one, as you were bringing your children into this world, you knew that you guys will have this 30-year relationship that's going to lead to building generational wealth. You can't fathom this now because what society has already taught you guys, right?
Right.
But I want you to go back in time and say, hey, from the time I started having children, I knew I was going to teach them group economics, which starts at home, and how every family member contributes to the economic well-being of this family. If we were 70, 80, 90, 100 years ago, Michelle,
Mm-hmm.
your friend, your acquaintance would have never asked you if you are charging your children to stay. You know what they would have said? If your children were not helping out on the farm at 4 in the morning at the age 5, 6, 7 years
Thank you.
old, they would be
Thank you.
saying you're creating a slothful individual
Thank
that's
you.
going to leech off
Thank
society.
you.
So now you're going to be judged in the complete
Thank you.
opposite way that
Thank you.
we're judging people now,
Thank
right?
you.
So
Thank you.
the game has shifted. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because when we force our babies out into a capitalistic society that's driven by economics and they are not financially prepared,
Mm-hmm.
then they are going to get taken advantage of.
I agree. Just to kind of piggyback, here's the dynamic, right? The dynamic, our contrast, right? I love our contrast.
Mhm.
You just gave me a whole lot. And I'll admit, when you was giving me all that wonderfulness, part of my brain was off in the field, in the meadows, chasing butterflies and bunny rabbits. And or part of my brain, remember back when television, when you used to watch television till television went off, and then
Mhm.
the screen would go to Neapolitan, and it would go.
Yeah.
My
Yes.
brain went to that. I was like, I was hanging in there, but I was like, you lost me,
It's hard to
because
imagine.
you went to numbers. And
Yeah.
but where I zero back in was, I think that, like, with that discussion, like where you, the example you gave of, you know, if this were years and years ago on the farm,
Mhm.
and that, that would have never happened. I think somewhere along the line, that shift that you talked about, somewhere along the line with some folks, that shift happened where something happened or transcended, where not, we figured that we owe our children, something happened where, not entitlement, but there's a word for it, where there's a word and a term for it, and it is escaping me now, but where something happened and guilt came in, and
Mhm.
we're carrying, there's a generation that is carrying guilt.
Mhm.
So we're not wanting to, I can't have them do that because I don't want them to, be mad at me, or I don't want them to feel a certain way. So there's a
Mhm.
generation of parenting that has taken place where they're afraid to make their children do things, right?
Mhm.
That are uncomfortable, because they don't want the children to be mad at them, right?
Mhm.
And so they are coddling and babying children and not enforcing true parenting, for lack of a better
Right.
term, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
From back in the day, like what you just said, on the farm. Yeah, get your
Mhm.
booty out there on the farm and buck the hay, or do whatever it is you do to hay when you're on the farm,
Yeah. Build the
whatever
hay.
that may be. Yeah, but I think there's a generation that's afraid to do that, because that
Mhm.
same gentleman that I had that conversation with, there was a fear in him when he said, "Oh,
Mhm.
you charge your children, or how dare you?" But
Mhm.
really deep down inside, you're not charging them. You're preparing them. You're not taking from them. You're showing them this is economics. Like you said, this is how you
Mhm.
pay your bills. This is what you do. You know that if you have your children, they're in the household, you're taking that money and it's going on the bills and the food that they're using and they're eating, and it's going right back into the surplus of the household. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? It's that stream, it's that revenue stream, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, and so if you're afraid to show your children that revenue stream, you're afraid to show
Mhm.
them that there's something going on the inside of you,
Yeah.
that there's something deeper, right?
Right.
Psychologically going on with that generation of parenting that I think.
Yeah, I
Um,
think so. And it's social because
I agree.
the reason we went away from building family businesses, even if it wasn't a farm, if I owned a family retail store, if I owned a general store in the
Yep.
community, it would be commonplace for my children to be right there with me
There it is.
working in the general store because it's a family thing. But you know
Absolutely.
what happened?
Yep.
College and university began to be pushed as the only way
Mhm.
to succeed
Mhm.
and the best way to succeed. So what they did was they used strategic marketing to have us preparing our children to get away because away for them means college and university. So our children
Mhm.
have to be prepared for that. But let me just paint an economic picture for you guys in terms of how we can rethink this whole thing, right? I
Mhm.
have five sons right now. One of my oldest son did end up getting put out, and I wrestled with that whether I did the right thing or not for a couple reasons. Now I know that he suffers from some psychological issues because I stepped into his life when he was 4 years old, right? Which means he was old enough to start developing a relationship with his biological dad, and then his biological dad walked out on him, right? So the entire time I raised him from 4 years old to 24 years old, that whole 20-year period, he was waiting for me to walk out of his life because
Mm.
of abandonment issues, right?
Right.
So when I put him out after some very lenient terms and putting some expectations out there, it still I became the enemy, public enemy number one, because this is exactly what he was anticipating for 20 years.
Right.
Right. So there were some psychological issues that I probably should have recognized as his dad and got him some help for that. And I didn't. So I wrestled with that. But let's just say that not being the case, all five of my sons are grown. My youngest is 18, be
Mhm.
19 this year. He's gainfully employed. All of them are gainfully employed. My wife and I are gainfully employed in our own business, so we make a certain
Mhm.
amount of money online every single month. Say each of my sons are pulling in $2,000 per month,
Mhm.
right? And between my wife and I, we're bringing in another 5,000 collectively. So that is $15,000 per month that
Mhm.
comes into this household every single month.
I
If
need to come stay with y'all.
imagine what we could build
Right.
with that if we're working in harmony for the purpose of building generational wealth with $15,000 per month. And you
Right.
think about the fact that, okay, with $15,000 a month, we probably can mortgage a nice four-family flat
Mhm.
at 150, $200,000, which means a mortgage on something like that will probably be around $1,200 per month. The
Mhm.
utilities to manage that whole building and keeping the grass cut, the lights on, the gas, and all of that would probably be another six or seven, maybe $1,000 per month. So you're saying that, Cortez, the five of us, the seven of us, have an income or a revenue stream collectively of $15,000 per month. And
Mhm.
it costs us collectively just to house ourselves with the utilities that come with it say $2,500 a month. That's the mortgage, that is the utilities, that is the maintenance on the property, right? $2,500 per month. We'll spend another $2,500 per month feeding and clothing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got $10,000 per month to actually invest in whatever we want to invest in, whether it is another property, whether it is a business based on one of the passions for the children, whether it is whatever. Now, again, it's hard to imagine because the way we've been socially conditioned to this point, because you would argue that we can't work together like that. Everybody's gonna be too grown and have different opinions. That's because the way we raise them today. If we had raised them with this as the mindset from the very beginning, we'd have raised them a lot differently. So go ahead, Michelle.
So, my question is,
Mm-hmm.
with that, right? Let's say, even if you'd raised them with that mindset from the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're the ages that they are now, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are the ages again? The youngest is 18, but what are the
18
other?
and the oldest is 28.
What are the in between?
18, 20, 22, 24, and 28.
Okay, you all
Something
are in
like
one
that.
household. Everybody's gainfully employed. Those are some great ages. They're young
Mm-hmm.
men. They have social lives.
Mm-hmm.
They work. They have, et cetera, et cetera. They play the game.
Mm-hmm.
They have friends. They have girlfriends.
Yep.
Okay, so you have the one dynamic of the situation that you gave, but then
Mm-hmm.
the social dynamic, the friends over,
Mm-hmm.
girlfriends over,
Mm-hmm.
um, that social dynamic in the household. How
Mm-hmm.
does that pair, all five boys,
Mm-hmm.
and let's bring the oldest boy back in just for kicks and
Yep.
grins,
Mm-hmm.
all five boys, the social dynamic, friends, girlfriends, high traffic, all of that at the same time.
Yeah.
Is that something, and I'm going to just rip the band-aid off,
Mm-hmm.
is that worth it? Is that payoff worth that social dynamic of that's a lot going on in one
Mm-hmm.
household at one
Yeah.
time? Is that worth it?
Yeah. So you have to weigh the pros and the cons. And again, you think about a social construct in that manner,
Right.
and what would be the ground rules, right? See, and I think for us, we're naturally thinking parent. And one of my mentors said to me the other day as we were on a training call, he said, Cortez, when our children are younger than 18, we are their parents. We are, quote, their managers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to take control of a lot of things.
Right.
When they get 18 and older, we can't dictate what they do. So instead of
Exactly.
being their managers, we become their consultants,
Right.
right? So when
Right.
we're thinking about this dynamic, we're no longer parents.
Right.
We're
Right.
cohabitants and
Right.
business partners because this is an
Right.
economic situation. This isn't a
Right.
parent-child
Right.
situation. So, what are the established rules for our family compound that
Right.
says, are we going to allow cohabiting with girlfriend, boyfriend, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Well, how can we not when as parents we cohabit, right? So my wife and I live on the property and we share a bedroom and all that kind of stuff. So I think what we, again, that goes to what society says in our social engineering, so to speak, because the first thing you would come to is, well, once they hit that age, can he have a live-in girlfriend? Well, my faith says, no, that's not how we're going to behave because that's what our faith says. But if you marry this young lady, then you have your own space according to how much you contribute to the family compound. Then sure, you can move your family in. That only makes sense, right? But what we look at is, if my sons, all five of them, happen to be
Mm-hmm.
dating at the same time and they all want to bring their girlfriends over at the same time and they party, how is that going to look to people on the outside looking in when, if we got our thing tight, We don't care what it looks like to people on the outside looking in, as long
Yeah.
as we have rules that
Right.
say, here's how we're going to govern this whole thing. Here's the repercussions if we do
Right.
not. And if we cannot make it work, here is
Mm.
the protocol for voting somebody off the island, for a lack of a better word.
Ha, off the island. That's a good one. putting putting religion to the side, for lack of a better term, and then putting a look to the side. Because you're right. You're in your
Mhm.
home. We don't give a darn about what people on the outside think. We don't care about that.
Yeah.
Just as adults, you're making that
Mhm.
transition from under 18, over 18, what get on your nerves and what don't get on your nerves, making that
Mhm.
transition. Um, yeah, you're my child. Now you're an adult. You're in my household. Here's this, and I'm gonna be honest, right? And
Mhm.
maybe this is just the me part of it. Not a look, not spirituality. You're my child. Okay. You're 24. You're in my household. You contribute. Here's this man laid up. Oh,
Mhm.
okay. Y'all want to quiet down? You're too
Right.
loud. Okay. The rules are A, B, and C. Oh, okay. You broke the rules. Okay. There's
Mhm.
consequence for breaking the rules. Okay. That ain't in the guidelines. Okay. You're breaking too many rules. Okay.
Mhm.
There are going to be, I think, I'll be honest, just from the standpoint of that's on my damn nerves. Um, y'all on my nerves. That was a
Right.
3-strike policy. Y'all got to
Right.
have a hefty. Your rule book got to be that thick with 5 boys.
Yeah. I mean,
Ooh,
I mean, it has to be spelled out
yeah,
in writing, and the expectations, but
right,
the rule book doesn't have to be that thick
right,
if this is how they were groomed from the beginning.
right,
If
right.
we
Yes, sir.
instituted this now,
Yeah,
yes, the rule book has to be that thick because we have to spell out everything. But if
right.
we groom them from the very beginning that, hey,
True.
you contribute to this family in whichever way you can contribute. So at
Oh heck
5 years
yeah.
old, it might only be passing out flyers when dad is doing his business thing at the
Oh
flea
yeah.
market, right?
Oh yeah.
But as you're groomed in, hey, your brother has a company, there is a certain level of respect that
Right.
we both have to show one another. I have to
Right.
respect him to give him that privacy as his
Right.
dad. You have to respect him to give him that privacy as his brothers. He has
Right.
to respect us in what him and his guests are doing and how they're
Gotcha.
behaving on the family compound because
Right.
of the way we raise them. But you said something that um
Y'all ain't gonna be
that
drinking no
what
Kool Aid, are you?
yeah,
It's
right.
okay.
You
Right. Keep
said
going.
something that would have to change in that you said my child, my place. It's not my
Ooh.
place.
Okay,
See,
that's why I put mine
at
out. I couldn't do it.
18, and we decide that this is a business arrangement, and this is what I
Right.
want people to get.
Yeah.
Every family is a business.
Yeah, you're right.
Every family is already a business. We just don't run it like a
Yeah.
business. But
Yeah.
now when we start running it like a business and you turn 18, when you were 17 and a half, 17 and three quarters, it was my place. You were in my place. But when you turn 18 and we build this economic arrangement, it's no longer my place, it's our place. And we have common area that we're all responsible for. And then you have your own respective private areas that your contribution, your monetary contribution is paying for. What goes on in your private quarters to a degree that is done respectfully is
Right.
not my business.
You a good dude. You know what? It,
Now,
you
and
you
I'm
my
saying
hero.
that with just to give you guys an idea. Now,
Right.
it doesn't have to go to that extreme, but
Right.
start thinking about if my youngest, if my oldest is 28 and at 18 he started doing this, and then the other one graduated, and then ultimately, so there's 10 years between the oldest and the youngest. So that means we have 2 years. If
Mhm.
we're looking at 30 as the, we're going to make sure that you're established by 30. All of our investment money is going to go into your enterprise. So at 30, you're going
Mhm.
to run off, you're going to run your own thing. you're set up, and all of the contribution and the extra money has been gone to set you up. So now you're flying out. So at 18, at 28, we got 2 years of that
Mm-hmm.
$15,000 a month, that $10,000 to invest in you to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that you're right. And then when your thing blows up, you do contribute back to the family, right? Because we
Yeah.
invested in you. So
Yeah.
now some of your profits are going back into the family. Why? Because we're all building up the 26-year-old for the
Yeah.
next 4 years to help him set up his thing. So
Right.
now when they leave the nest, Michelle, they're going
Uh-huh.
to a house that's already paid for. When they leave the nest, Michelle, they've got a college degree if they went that route. They've got a trade
Yeah.
certificate if they went that route, but they don't have the student loan debt. Why?
Right.
Because the family economic structure says we don't do debt. We leverage credit, we leverage other people's money, but we don't do debt in that manner. When they
Yeah.
go into their marital situation and they start bringing children into the family, there's already a trust fund established,
Yeah.
right? So we
Yeah.
have to start thinking about, from an economic standpoint, is it economically viable to continue to put our babies out when they do not have a full understanding of the world that they are going into? We know they think they do,
Right.
but
Right.
hell, at 46 in 3 days, I still don't. So
Right.
how can I expect them to, at 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, to have a
Right.
full grasp and be ready to be effective as an adult with all of the transitions that are still happening in their body, the hormonal shifts that are still happening?
Right.
See, we talk about adolescence, but we don't talk about the psychological and emotional shifts that
Yeah.
happen from 18 to 25. And then
Yeah.
what happens from 25 to 30.
30. Yeah. A
I've been
lot's
teaching
going
my
on.
children that you think you're gotten to a certain point where you don't need me. No, this is
Mm-hmm.
actually the point where you
Yeah.
start needing me.
Right.
You didn't
Right.
need me from 18, from 0 to 18 as much as you need me from 18 to
Yeah.
30.
Especially
And I
those
think that's the
boys.
part that we're missing.
Yeah. You know what? Such valid points. You know what? My girls, if you're listening, your mother loves you. And you know what? Cortez has made a very compelling argument. Courtney, Kyla, if you're listening, y'all could come on back home. But Mama says, come on back home. Mama, look. No, I'm just playing. Y'all can't come on back home. I done changed the locks. Y'all can't come here. Y'all go over there with him. Y'all go over there with Cortez. Y'all can't come over here. The doors is locked. The doors of the church are closed. I'm
but
very sorry.
but
No,
you're
I'm
looking
kidding.
at
I'm kidding.
you're looking at your
I'm
current
kidding.
existence.
Kidding.
But what
Kidding.
would it be like
Just kidding.
if you had if you were thinking economically from the
Oh
very
yes.
beginning,
Yeah,
and you
totally.
had 6 acres, and when they got to a certain point, they moved into another property, they moved into another residence on the family property.
Oh heck yeah.
You see what
Heck
I'm
yeah.
saying?
If I
And
could do
now
it
we're
again, I would do it different. I would.
yeah.
I would. I would. I totally. I totally would. I, I would. I would do it different. I would do it different. I'll say that.
So
So.
so LaShawn said, my kids have until 20 years old to be out of the house if they do not attend college or the military.
Yeah.
And even though I'm presenting a different argument, this is no judgment for anybody. But what happens if they're not ready?
They better get ready. If you stay ready, you ain't gotta get ready.
So I'm saying she has drawn a line in the sand and says, no matter what, at 20 years old, whether you have
Whew.
severe depression, whether you
Oh,
have a
Jesus.
setback or whatever, at 20 years old, if you decide not to go to college or to the military, you got to be out of my house starting from zero.
I'm
How are we
I'm
to build generational wealth when every generation has to start from zero?
I'm sure that there's going to be some preparation in there somewhere. She's done the work. from 0 to 20. She ain't just finna kick them out to the world or just let them out the nest and they just finna flutter to the ground. If they don't choose college or the military, I'm sure. See,
Right.
preparing them now. Look, there it is. They're 7 and 9. See, she's doing the work now. That's the age difference in my two.
Right. But watch
I
this.
agree.
But watch this. She's preparing them. She's preparing them now.
Mm-hmm.
And the closer they get to 20 years old, the more pressure on her to get them ready and to force them to be ready by that time. That's going to add a tremendous amount of stress to her life and their life. Could that be why parent-child relations typically in our community are off kilter for that whole 20s to 30s, and then it starts to level out when your children get to a certain age? And we as parents like to say, see, now you're matured and you understand what I was trying to teach you. But no, it could have been the same as they were going through and you were bringing them up in a certain way. So I'm just thinking that that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself to have to make sure they're ready by that age. Go ahead.
Do we think that, and was that Angela that was making a comment?
LaShawn.
LaShawn, okay. And I could be missing the mark with this, and this could have nothing to do with nothing. So if I'm off with this, my apologies, LaShawn. I could be missing the mark. Do you think it has anything to do with, now I was raised in a 2-parent household. Okay. So why I took the route that I did, I don't know. But I was a single parent. I don't know if LaShawn is a single parent or not. But me being a single parent, I felt not an urgency, but I had a concern. I didn't have the strongest relationship with my father. My girls didn't have a relationship with their father. So because of a certain uncertainty about their future, I felt compelled to give them what I had to give them because I was by myself, and because I felt like, okay, I have to prepare you at a little bit of a faster rate because I'm by myself, right? And because I felt like there was a little bit of an uncertainty about their future because I was by myself, I didn't have a traditional family. I felt like I had to give them this because I was in survival mode, right? And so I didn't feel like I had an opportunity to sit back and give them and I know we're at time. I didn't feel like I had this sit back and give it to them slow approach. I had to, let me give this to you now because your future, I don't know how this is going to work for you. But however your future turns out for you, I want you to be prepared. I want and I thank God, my children are at the age that they are. I'm not a grandmother. Thank you, Jesus. But because I want them to have a successful relationship, I want them to be married. I don't want them to repeat that cycle. I want my grandchildren to have a stable household. I want them to have a 2-parent household, and so I'm still doing some work with my girls, even though they're grown, even in their dating lives. I don't get overly involved in their dating relationships, but I do sometimes insert myself with the good ones and help them drive those relationships because I want success for them, because I want my grandchildren to have what they didn't have. Even to an extent what I didn't have, so that they can get to what you demonstrated. Because I don't think that there's anything wrong with what you said, that what you laid out in your economic family plan, nothing wrong with that. I just don't think that everyone has the opportunity to lay out that plan for their family, especially as a single parent. So, not saying it ain't possible. But.
And Christopher Chappelle says the family should be thought of as an economic unit. And you got, if you just jumped on Chris, that's exactly my take on it. And LaShawn said, yes, I am a single parent of 2 Black boys. And LaShawn, what I like to do, and I don't have it all figured out, but I do like to have us to think critically about the things that we are force fed. And I've always been taught to follow the money. And if you follow the money, who benefits the most when we put our ill-prepared children out into the world when they are not ready for this economic onslaught that's going to show up at their doorstep and they have to start from scratch. That's my thing, is to get
True.
you guys thinking. So LaShawn and those two black boys, even though she's a single parent, if they start today looking at their family unit as an economic structure, and they start looking at how to maximize that. Even you, Michelle, with your girls right now
Mm.
today, both
Yeah.
gainfully employed, you're
Oh
gainfully
yeah.
employed, and say, listen, what would it look like if for the next 2 years we commit to scaling our lives down to
Mm.
say, hey, you don't come back home, but we've got $1,000 per month to
Okay.
contribute to our economic foundation
We
to
can do
make
that.
sure that your grandchildren are coming into this world on a solid ground, whether they have to be single parents or not, right?
Oh, right.
So
Right. I
let's
can
see.
do that.
My girl Latasha says, I left home at 20 and was not ready. It took a good 6 years, married and all, before we had our stuff together. LOL. It is extremely important to prepare our children financially, so we don't plan on kicking them out unless we know that they're prepared and they have what they need to succeed. So LaShawn says, what would be the recommended age? Does the maturity of the child play a role? It absolutely does. I
Yes,
have a
by all
son who
means.
is living in Houston right now. And when he left to go to college, he went to UMKC over in Kansas City, Missouri, broke my wife's heart. You know why it broke her heart? Because when the second semester ended and it was time for him to come home for the summer, he said, hey, mom, me and five of my friends found
Oh
a place
yeah.
to rent, and I'm
That's
going to
true that.
stay here. And all
Yeah.
of us are working two part-time jobs to pay for this place. That joker ain't been back home since.
Wow. Yeah.
Since
Wow.
he graduated in 2012, I think. Yeah,
Really?
he ain't been home since. Um, and broke my wife's heart because she was like, "What do you mean you're not coming home?" So his maturity level said,
When you coming home?
"Get this adulting thing
Yeah.
done, and I'm just gonna do the doggone thing." Now, do I still have to send that joker money all the time? Yeah. So, in my Kevin Hart voice, no, he wasn't ready. But I liked his level of maturity and his thought process, saying that
Yeah.
the only way for me to get ready is to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wouldn't say there's a recommended age, but I'm saying if we look at the family as an economic structure, we can set some goals and some milestones that says, hey, you're going to be gainfully employed and have your own business. You're going to have the
Mm-hmm.
habit of living off 70% of your income and saving 20%, giving 10% to charity or whatever your religious beliefs are. You're going to
Yeah.
have certain habits in place because of our focus on our economics. When you go into your first place, from my place, it will be a place that you own free and clear. So you won't have that as a mortgage to go into. So when you go into that place, instead of treating it like you rent free, no, you're going to pay yourself rent $800 a month. And that money is going into some sort of investment fund or trust for the children, because this is why we're doing this thing for 3, 4, 5, 6 generations down the road. So I wouldn't say that there is an age. I think according to your economic plan, there should be some criteria that says,
Yeah.
hey, here's what we're trying to achieve with you, and have you accomplish these things before you go or before you get on my last nerve.
Right. 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 Whichever come
Because
first.
that was the other thing with my son. He was working, but because the anticipation of having to leave and his mental state, it had really got to the place where he had become so negative. And
Mm.
and I'm talking about, we couldn't pass each other and passing without this disgruntled look on his face. This like we can't even, don't even come close to me as we're walking by.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
that, with him being the oldest, I said the young ones can't see this.
Yeah.
They can't see
It's
this
not.
because this is going to warp or distort, their whole thing. So it was it. it's not a easy thing to deal with and come to that conclusion and that
Yeah.
determination, but we did not have this economic game plan from the beginning. And that's why I
Yeah.
told LaShawn at 9 and 7, if you just start thinking about it differently, by the time they're 12 and 14, you might have that plan laid out and say, hey, we've got 6 years to get the older one right. Here's the parameters. Here's what I want to make sure that you know really well. Here's the things that I want to make sure that you have in place. Here's how we're going to look at your living situation. And if you decide not to go to college, what is an acceptable career or thing for you to be doing at 20 to
Right.
determine whether or not you can continue to stay, right? So I know, guys, we went over our normal hour. I'm going to let you have the last word, Michelle. I feel like I've been talking a lot.
No, I mean it was a great discussion. I feel like we really covered lots of a lot of ground, just about just how we relate with our children and economics and family structure, and it just gave us a really broad base to consider, to look at. Gave us the other
Mhm.
side of the coin, something else to consider in the realm of family economics, which is something that I think in the Black community we need to spend a little bit more time thinking about. Really,
Mhm.
from the aspect of the two the two parent family unit, of course. I think
Mhm.
sometimes in most social dynamics we spend more time on the two parent family unit, but taking the opportunity to spend more time on the single parent family unit. I
Mhm.
mean, that is, and maybe we'll take some more time in a later episode and
Yeah,
dedicate that to single parent family economics. I think that'd be a good
yeah,
topic. Um,
absolutely.
because I think we need that. Single moms, single dads, we need that, because I think that was something I didn't consider until later on in life. I'm almost 50, almost, and I'm just now starting to get credit and bills and all that in line just now. And I really, that, like you gave the example to LaShawn, I should have been doing that when my kids were, in their teens. I
Mhm.
should have been looking at it a different way. So, great topics
Absolutely.
today, great subjects today. So, another good one.
Awesome. And thank all of you guys for tuning
Yes.
in. If you're listening to this on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen, always remember you can go back to any of our social handles, the
Hmm.
St. Louis Hustle podcast on Facebook to watch the actual broadcast. Sometimes you just
Hmm.
got to see this ugly mug and my beautiful co-host,
Right. I was like, who
Michelle
the ugly
A.
fuck? What?
And you can
Hey.
see all of the comments and the
Yes.
interaction that we have.
Yes.
But we
Yes. Yes. Yes.
appreciate
Yes.
you guys. Do us a huge favor, man. This is such a huge topic,
Yes.
man. Hit that share button
Share it. Share it.
so that
Share it.
people can get to hear and
Please.
open up
Please.
these types of dialogues, because
Mm-hmm.
economic empowerment is so important. In fact, I
It
heard a
is.
gentleman, I can't remember, I think his name is Curtis Wall Street. He's a guy who learned how to trade stock in prison,
Oh
right?
wow.
But he said that um, our economic condition and financial illiteracy is a bigger threat than anything else in our community. And I agree with them wholeheartedly,
Oh,
because the D boys are on the corner because of our economic situation. They
right.
robbing and they killing because of our economic situation.
Right.
Our single parenthood rate increases when our economic condition isn't right. So
Right.
we've got to really start looking at economic empowerment for ourselves. And that's why we
Yes.
do what we do. So with that, we're going to wrap this thing up, man. Until we talk to you guys next time, I want you to
Um.
get your money up, because you absolutely
Yes.
can do it. But more
Hustle
importantly,
hard.
you deserve to do it. Each and every single one
Oh.
of you. Now hustle up.